Good morning, friends. Um, Monday morning. It's about 9:20 in the morning here. Setting up my plans into the writing and editing for the day. I've got some videos to cut and post. But very interesting thing happened in my Instagram account commentary this morning that kind of reflects what's wrong with Russians and their propaganda. And am I the only one awake? Well, at least someone's awake, or this would be very odd for me to just leave a video and post and go. But actually, I just tried to arm one, but even though my Wi-Fi is on the other side of this wall, I decided to try, check my settings. But anyway, to my Substack friends versus the Instagram crowd, which is basically my Ukrainian friends. Uh, I- I've been getting posts for the last maybe 12 hours saying that my comment um, about Russians attacking and killing 24 people in a building here in my neighborhood should be met with Western resistance to stop it. That it won't stop until the West gets involved. And I use the phrase gets involved. I didn't say this will not stop until you send your children to fight this war. I didn't say this will stop when you send all your country's money, I didn't say this would stop when you give Zelensky property in Florida. I didn't say any of that. I said get involved. I'm pretty good with the English language, and it's a struggle sometimes, but mostly I think I understand the English language. Я розумію англійську мову також. I understand English also. But the video that I was posting, good morning, everybody. Thank you. I see Laura and Amy and NCC and others joining here. Um, The interesting thing is that the video I'm commenting on was, I believe, the morning of the 15th, whatever the Friday was. This was after air raid, uh, basically drone attacks across the entire country on the 13th, 1,500 drones, and then 56 missiles that killed my friend Ilya's girlfriend Vera and her sister in that building, 24 other people in that building. And I stood there for about 9 hours with everyone waiting. And internet mongrels, substandard humans, come to my location and say it's retaliation for the strike on the school in Russia. Putin will win, or Russia's great, or whatever stupid stuff. And it kind of reveals the trolling error at its very root, doesn't it? That magically Putin retaliated on the 13th, 14th for an event that happened in Moscow, or happened in Russia, sorry. Um, on the 21st, it's like time travel. And they don't really have a sense of humor about this. But imagine waking up in some country, and I abhor the phrases like third world, but that's how most of America would associate with some areas. I don't like those phrases. Um, Countries who have been through colonialism, who should fucking know better, whose advocacy and people like me, like my advocacy for certain parts of the world is older than the troll talking shit to me. If you could tell me how many of these that are talking shit to me were born in 1986, and I've actually found this ironic a few times when I have someone coming at my account from South Africa, like especially on Twitter. On Instagram, it happens a little bit, but on Twitter, coming at me from South Africa. And then I kind of snoop around the account a little bit and find it to be someone who was not possibly born in 1986. And it's like, really? Yeah. So imagine if I had that attitude about apartheid as a teenager when I was standing in front of the Shell oil building in Houston and learning like Kosisekelele Africa, Malo Pagamitsu Pondolwayo Iswaiman. So when I was learning about the people that needed to be released from oppression then, and I had been told, not my battle, not my problem, it's retaliation. It's, how cool would that have been? I don't have turnaround stories in my life. I'm not someone who was formerly a right wing or hardcore something and then suddenly go, oh my God, I'm being a Nazi. I'm going to go be something else. I don't have a turnaround story like that. I've kind of always been on this route. Man, come on, please get off my screen. Thank you. My battery is trying to die. I don't have much battery on this phone. I did not get up and charge this phone to have a commentary. But this really, it both irritates me and not in a way that will ever stop me. Putin Khuilo, not going to stop me. It's just this is my pre-coffee vent. I've already taken my little cold shower because we still don't have hot water, and I turn it into work. Your troll people become work, become almost like a passion of mine. It's as if I had written one about ISIS many years ago when I did the same thing for other shitbags. I specialize in these things, no less. Here's the funny thing to my Substack friends, which I feel like I can have a different conversation. Dobroranko, to my Greek brother, is that anyone who's known me long enough knows that how I feel about trolls and the difference between me and your average person on the internet when it comes to trolls. I have thousands of accounts destroyed by my fingertips. Thousands. Eventually, I stopped counting, number one. It just got tedious to keep up with the count. I didn't care. It was just funny at first because I was getting pretty good success. This was when the ISIS logos were everywhere, all over Facebook and Instagram and that place called Twitter at the time. I also had fast-tracked access to people at Twitter in emergencies. So when I saw a real threat, and they understood, hopefully understood that I understood the difference between edgelording and really crazy stuff and an actual threat to somebody else or crossing the line threat. And online with these trolls that come up and say things about Ukraine, you that have been with me when we're actually live during attack, where you get to hear the sounds in the background of real-time attack. Like I didn't go on live the other night, largely because I made an incredible bunch of food that just really didn't set well at 3 o'clock in the morning. Worst time to have acid reflux, to the point where I didn't want to sit in front of a camera and be thinking two things at once, which is I don't feel well. And I know the culprit. I know the combination that stirred it off that night. But it is what it is. While a Oreshnik missile is landing in my fucking neighborhood off to my south. And then I wake up to trolling comments on Instagram aimed at Ukrainians. And again, if you've figured out the message of what I'm telling you here about what I do, why I don't go into shelters, and you can tell from the top floor, you don't see me running and you don't hear my voice quivering. I'm not afraid of that. I'm afraid of failing people that I care about. That's a much deeper. Okay. So when people come up on my timeline and say that, it's just weird way of spending your life. It's an absolutely stupid way of spending your life to wake up and just randomly hate some section of people in the world. You have no common anything to be hating about. Like, why wake up in Nigeria and want to be shit talking Ukrainians, or wake up in India and shit talking Ukrainians? And even better is to wake up from these places and tell me what's happening outside, to tell me what I don't understand about the world order, the geopolitic puzzles. And it's funny if I can actually take them at face value when they tell me what their country is. I don't have the platform on Instagram to sit there and want to ramble back towards them about, really, would you like to play this game from where you're at? I'm pretty facile with most countries. And either one of two things is going to happen. You live in a country that doesn't fucking matter. I can respect the country anyway, but it has no consequence, you know? So that means you don't have any consequence either as you go on and on my timeline wishing death for people. Or maybe you're from one of those countries that has consequence right now, like India, as an example. You're not going to win that battle because you're talking to a 30-year tabla player, clinical player, or clinical, student. That's the vocals, so you don't really play the vocals. Advocate for a lot of post-colonial reality checks for the West, for India. Good advocate in a lot of areas. I don't like nationalism under Modi. Okay. I don't like violence between two groups of people that don't have to have violence. I could hold the violence to one side if I didn't know the truth about the other. I've been in conversations with Indians who did not know that they were about to offend me, go on and on and on about Muslims. When in fact, a lot of what has been good for your country's growth over many years has been the fusion of both cultures. I also understand that politics is local. So in India, if I don't live under those problems, I don't really assert myself in domestic politics. I'll advocate from a distance. Um, but why shit on Ukrainians? Because it tells America something? Because you hear my voice? Because I'm from Texas, so that somehow gives you the right to shit on a nation that isn't your enemy, didn't do anything to you, and is under colonial oppression? Okay. It's not a good look. Doesn't really bode well for having confidence in people who, um, you know, let's cut to the chase. You don't speak for a lot of Indians, because I have a lot of friends who are horrified at what's happening and are very proud of their country at the same time, being Indian. So Central America. I had someone ask me this on a conference call last night. What would I say to someone from Central America? Same thing, same question. It's simple. Like, I already agree with. I assume, unless there's some other view I'm not aware of, I already agree with pushing back on colonial trappings and the Monroe Doctrine of America. I've been an advocate for that my entire life. Um, Again, I don't have a turnaround story. These are easy things to solve with me. Maybe not on the big scale, but at least with me, that's my standard. So to not get it right with me just means that you just woke up and you just spew at the world, and you randomly spew at people in Ukraine because you're angry at America. And I don't understand this. If you guys, do you mind holding 1 second? I can actually put a charger on this so that we don't lose. If you bear with me. Okay. Okay. Just sitting here watching this get down to 4%. So I'll put on power bank. That's my power bank. That's doing pretty good. All right. I like the balcony time. We'll just call this balcony time from now on. It's all hazy, but entirely way above the city. Um, but Latin America. I have a lot of friends who are very lefty, um, you know, like lifelong friends, people who really had an impact upon my worldview from great conversations. And, it doesn't take long to put myself in their orbit and be sympathetic to uh, the way in which America runs its trade deals, the way in which it benefits essentially Anglo Europe, and but yet it doesn't in any way justify shitting on Ukrainians. None of these things that happen justify shitting on Ukrainians, which is essentially my Monday morning uh, venting rant. I just find it really ridiculous to wake up and see posts that are just really stupid, and they're from accounts that have 18, 19 followers maximum. Account is locked, so we know that you're trying to troll, and you don't want the retaliation for it. Or there's one post, it says Jesus something, serving the Lord. That's another thing that really really irks me, is people who say, God fearing love, love of God, love of Jesus, Jesus is Lord. The rest of that commentary. Um, it's time you throw things out the window, opening your soul and mind. Actually, I did that one time. Not from here. Um, we had a construction crew that really pissed me off by starting their jackhammer work at about 5 minutes to 8 one morning. This is about 2006 era. And I opened up the window and I told them to turn it down, and they didn't. And it wasn't just me. It's that my neighbors to one side work late. They're two guys who are they work in restaurants. So I know they get home probably 1:30 to 2 o'clock in the morning. And yeah, we have a quiet neighborhood, and you can do that later. I went down to the foreman. The foreman saw the look I have when I'm extremely angry, and wasn't threatening either. There were no threats. I don't talk in terms of threats. Just turn that effing stuff down. And he kind of reluctantly agreed and told them, I said there was neighbors trying to sleep, and so turn it down. And he relented, and I think we got a reprieve till about 10. I said you can start about 10. Everyone has had enough time to basically get in the real world. The same workers, though, I had a printer, one of those cheap, $70 something printers, and a specific part inside broke that I know you don't fix for an item like that. There's nothing retrievable about it. And I just happen to have an identical one in a box, sitting at, 15 feet maximum away from the first when I saw it. And I thought, I'm going to have fun. So I opened up the window from my studio, and the balcony below me was my balcony as well. So all property is mine. And I said, "Hi, good morning." And I just dropped that printer out the window to have it go really nice bust all over my patio on the concrete. It was beautiful. And then I just waved at them and I shut the door and let them decide what to do with that. It was cathartic. It solved the problem for about a half a minute. But anyway, to Arcadians, throw something out the window. But from here, no. I'm like a babusi. Everything must be clean. Don't get the things near the window. If something were to happen like that, that would be bothersome. But I see Katishu and D.W. Phillips has joined. Just kind of wrapping up a thought for Monday morning. Again, I'm going to do some editing on some works. I have one, the anatomy of the pro-Russian troll, but I keep trying to get into certain examples, and I'm having fun with the types of sociological problems that generate these types of individuals. There's actually a lot of people who've done research into trolls. Very impressive. I did not know this. I knew some who had done it for different reasons, but not like this. It's a new area of like gather. But to wake up and have people harass anyone else that's going through war. I mean, today is 1,502 days of full scale war, maybe 3. I'd have to check my math again because sometimes I miss it by a little bit if I don't look at my little roster there. 1,552 days, 50. Yeah, it's 46 difference between my experience here and everyone else who didn't leave, and yet I get told from people who've never been around any of this what the war is. Um, I love the ones that are like, you serve Zelensky something, or you believe what Zelensky tells you. I actually, that's a good one. I really love the I believe something because someone told me to believe something argument. I really love this argument. It's very confessional, you know? People who talk like this, who say, you believe this because the MSM told you to believe this. Mainstream media told you to believe this, so or what was the other one I saw 2 weeks ago? Um, oh, it's so unfortunate you're part of the anti-orange hate machine. And I guess I interpreted it based on everything else the guy said to mean Trump. Um, that I've been brought into an anti-orange cult, which is very cult language. So if I am repulsed by a con artist, felon rapist guy who attacked my nation, who has undermined all the good alliances, who's sought favor with dictators and autocrats, that I'm in a cult? Okay. Yeah. So also in Zelensky, that's an even a better one. I don't have political heroes. I have people I can respect. For instance, I do actually have respect for someone who did not get up and walk out on the job. Um, but I've also listened and learned from Ukrainians how they feel about everyone from him to Klitschko. I have people who say good job. I have people who say I can't stand him. I didn't vote for him. I have people who say I didn't vote for him, but he's my president right now, and telling us when to have elections is no one's business. I've heard all of these things, and I'm going to respect Ukrainians as a diverse country with a lot of opinions and a lot of experience in speaking very well for itself. But to the trolls, it's very interesting. I believe something because Zelensky told me to believe it. Reversing the lens on that a little bit is I read something on the internet to say again and again and again, and I say it without even slightly questioning the words coming out my butt. That's what it sounds like when these trolls talk. They say the same things, just um, I know some of it's troll factory, we know that. I've covered it. I remember when it was the Macedonian troll factories. Young people who had no need to be trolling about certain topics paid a little bit of money that's hard to come by to just basically sit in a chamber and talk about that. Sure, of course we have that, but let's not just get distracted with the obvious Russians, okay, and the obvious paid trolls. We both know that there are still pathogens in our society of people who wake up and they get off on the suffering of other people for whatever reason. And I don't understand that. I can understand a context of someone being in the FAFO moment. So long as I know the context, if I understand, a guy walks up on a couple minding their business in some city in the United States or the world or anywhere, and the aggressor is hostile, goes to throw a punch and winds up getting knocked the fuck out by the wife. I love that. Of course, that's the whole reason why that content exists on the internet, is so people like me see the FAFO moment and go, that is awesome. I thought that husband was about to completely put that guy in his place, and it turned out the wife who was offended clubbed him because she's a top level martial artist or whatever the excuse was. These things are funny because aggression gets checked. But the other stuff, like if you were to take tragedy around the world, that doesn't fall in that kind of FAFO moment. I've seen what people write in those sections, that were not about Ukraine, other eras. And I don't really have a solution for it except for the platforms, should police themselves. And as you know, they don't. Worse now than ever. That's why I stopped trying. I report things, but I don't have the aggressive campaign I used to have because it doesn't work. It's a waste of energy. You have to do it differently. But hopefully you and I don't really know someone who's like that. Um, I at least if I do know someone who is like that, I don't know that they are. Years ago, I had a kid that came to when I had a band house with all the bandmates and friends. One of the great friends, actually, now that I think about who he was hanging with, had this kid that came by who was like, I don't know, 22, 23, young guy. I was right at 30. And he's bragging about how he hacks and just basically a list of shitbag things. Like he read the room wrong. It was the type of guy that's dropping brags that I guess in a shitbag room would have worked, but in ours, I'm just staring at him like, what are you saying, man? And he kind of tried to switch it up a little bit because he realized he was not popular suddenly. I said, no, go back to what you said you were doing. You know, no, I was just, and then, so you were lying. Wait, did you just lie about being a shitbag? Get out. Why did you bring him in here? And we know that those kind of broken people live amongst us, especially on the internet. The internet's filled with plenty of opportunity to be someone who just relishes in the suffering of others for some reason. I don't know. Я не знаю. Я не знаю про це. I don't know about that. But again, this morning I wanted to laugh a little bit with our friends about that Russian trolls come along and say that retaliation for an event killing people here on the 13th, 14th for an event that happened in Moscow a week later, that it's retaliation. Okay, sure. The war not stopping basically destroys the American economy slowly. So all those Americans who say it's not my war, why don't you go? First up, I've been here. Why don't you do stuff with the army? Not telling you what I do or don't do with the army. It's no one else's business. First off, it's especially no one's business that hasn't been here. If someone hasn't been here to even try to help stop this, they don't get to demand my 1,500 plus day resume. Um, that's very important. And number two, I've said very clearly, anyone here, Western or other, that is building drones that is not officially in the military needs to STFU. I don't care if they're just observing things. This is an actual war. We already know that there are locations that have been at least hunted for weapons tech people, and it's a concern if you have someone who's very, very public to go be at a building and said, I was building these things all day. Oh, here I am enjoying a cocktail with my friends on my balcony. Reverse the roles. Um, but remember what I said in my video about getting involved. I said, and until the West gets involved, until America gets involved, that's a range of tasks and support. That is not simply come put on a helmet and fight. In fact, there are a lot of those types of things that Ukrainians I know are very adamant to say, hey, we have a range of ways that people need to help. And the effort some people put into being really, really disingenuous, to literally be assholes in some smug way about what the West can and should or should not do. safely behind a keyboard that is unbombed is really substandard. It's substandard waste of humanity. We'll be fine without such a person ultimately. That kind of person I'm not concerned with having. Oh, here in Ukraine, for instance, when people talk about those who are brought to the front that don't want to fight, every soldier I know who's in the fight says explicitly, I don't want a guy here that doesn't want to be here. That's the last thing I need is a guy who's right here that absolutely does not want to be here. So put him somewhere else. If you want to mobilize him in some way, that's fine. But don't mobilize him on my team where I need people who want to be here and are here for the right reasons. And I feel the same way with every part of the sector of defending this country. Um, I've seen Westerners who came here and complained nearly the entire time they were here on their 1 week in Ukraine. They're telling us how beautiful, but because it wasn't basically American fast food, easy, grab a war experience, go home, McFlurry, excursion, they acted kind of an ass. Not much, not many people like that, but a few people I didn't understand what their motivations were here, and I'd rather they just weren't here. Mostly I've seen people who came, did good work, felt it was not enough, stayed connected and trying to continue to do more. That's why I did after our call with Sean last night, I did an extended conversation with some activists that are, doing great work for Ukraine. I was, in the dark about who they were, other than a couple of people in the group who wanted my experience here on the table. And I'm very glad that there are so many groups like this that basically did exactly the thing I'm talking about, getting involved. And they're very much on the left. They're a contradiction of the Code Pink idiot crowd. It's the type of people that, with my resources here in person, when I hear of something happening, I can connect the two and build that bridge up even more. When I say mobilize and do something for Ukraine, it's all of this. Otherwise, I would say, because I'm fairly facile with the English language, I would walk down the street when an air raid happens, and that video I made that's got about 50,000 views now on Instagram would say something different, saying, you hear that in the background? That's an air raid here at noon today. And until you send your sons and daughters to die for our country, this will continue. See, I could have said that. See, I just said that. But I didn't choose those words. I said, until you get involved, this will continue. Because it's an acknowledgement that Russia is okay to continue so. And for some people, they love it. There are people right now who absolutely love that Russia is creating terrorism here. They love it. 4 posts basically said more, not enough. The platform responses from Instagram are very interesting. Only one has been removed. The rest of them, no violation found. So people who've gone through terrorism, remember, I'm immune to the comments thrown at me. I see them as something you would throw at a person in war. You just happen to throw it at me. A person in Ukraine, you just happen to throw it at me. Potentially actually Ukrainian, you just happen to throw it at me. But the platform still lets it happen. And it's really, really pathetic. It's actually happened a little bit on this platform. Not much, thankfully. That's why I like Substack so far. I can talk to people who are relatively like-minded. And I really, really want to emphasize that. I don't want an echo chamber here. I just want not to be dealing with disingenuous, lying trolls. People who that's literally the definition of a troll, is someone who's disingenuous to the argument, no real desire to get to the point, sucking up your time, sucking up your energy, and trolling you. You know, I have found people who are radically different worldviews, obnoxious as fuck, still not be trolls. When I watch what they're saying, they just really have a strongly held belief, but they're not necessarily trolling. They could even be rude, and I can tell they're not trolling. But trolls are substandard human beings. Anyone who decides to be a troll is a substandard human being. So that's the Monday message. Don't be a troll. Oh my God. I hope you guys have a good sleep if you're in America and you can't sleep yet. And if you're on the other side or somewhere and not in America, good morning. I'm going to go get work done. It is now getting right at 10 o'clock, and trying to have a better week. It was good to see Sean in country last week. I will be attending some different briefings. Oh, I will tell you, these are my crybaby moments. A defender who just came back about a week ago, that I built it. The only thing I did in particular for this defender was when his wife said, "Will you build a poster for Stanislav for well, basically for him, but for her to post?" And I said, "Of course." And I had a whole series of these I was building for the Marines that I'm always known to be advocating with, and it wasn't limited to Marines. I had family. Anyone that asked me in that orbit said, "Hey, can you build one for my son, my husband, my father," or even a couple of women who knew who was missing would come to me and say, "Here's one for Constantine. Here's one for." So I built those. And today, when I saw her post, spending time with her husband, Marina, I saw that she had linked his account, and I sent as I ought to do, send a welcome home and big hug. And it's good. Stanislav is in recovery right now, and Stas is aware that you guys are out there, that we're not going to give up on the defenders to bring them home no matter what. So that was a good way to start a day, and not on the list. So when it happens, it's a good thing. I'll see you guys soon. We'll give you any kind of update that happens a little bit later. And thanks for your support. Thanks for believing in what me and my friends do on this platform. We got more to go. I've actually got some back to, although I do have some of my interesting culture interviews on the way. The Glenn Velez interview will be up in the next few days. But I have this week I have to really finish my super special feature guest, someone that I just think is just really, really marvelous. And you have started Where Are You Going? What? You have started Where Are You? I don't know what you're saying. My wonderful Greek friend. And Mona says, "Thank you for all you do. Much love from you." Thank you right back. I pass it on to the people in front. Sometimes you'll find that on camera. That's the beauty of certain events where I have access, is because I can ask your question to the people right here, including, I have a little idea I talked to Sean about, of getting an area where we have a big group couch or restaurants, sitting area, and get a few of my Ukrainian friends where we could pass the tablet around and read the questions that you ask on the screen like you do right now. You have just started. Where are you going? I don't know, man. You are hitting me with questions on Ponedilok, Monday. I am not a Monday person. I want to go crawl back in bed. I want hot water. Actually, would really love to have hot water back in my apartment soon. 1 month. So we'll see you soon. Slava Ukraini, Heroim Slava. I Pizdets. Rossiyska Federacja.